Welcome to Pastor Anderson Foreman's podcast documentary, hosted by me, Chuck, the host of Let's Just Talk About It podcast. Thank you for being here today. And thank you, sir, for doing this. Thank you. Thank you. How you doing today?
Blessed.
All right.
Honorable.
Absolutely. What do you like to eat? Where do you like to eat?
Different places. I have a great appetite. I can eat almost any place, but fish, seafood is the move.
Let's go here. We at Golden Corral in the booth together. You got a tea, got your plate. We're sitting down talking. I want to ask you some questions, just like we by ourselves. Nobody's in the room but me and you. First thing I want to say, I love to have genuine conversations with genuine people, just like yourself. You've been pastoring for 37 years, and I believe you have a journey that you could share with individuals. Where you've been in life, what you had to go through to get to where you are. And I believe everybody has their own unique journey, whether with a PhD, GED, no education, educated. Everybody has their own unique journey. And so with that being said, I love to jump right into my interviews. And so, who is Anderson Foreman?
Anderson Foreman is me, Anderson O. Foreman Jr., better known as Sonny, nickname.
Where did you get that name from?
I'm not sure, but I assume I got it from my parents because by the name after my father, his name Anderson, so they probably gave me a nickname, Sonny.
Sonny, I got you. What year were you born?
1945, December 26th.
You from Blackwater?
From Blackwater, section of Princess Anne County, now City of Virginia Beach.
Wow. When I first heard about Blackwater, I thought the water was black. You know what I mean? When I heard it. So what is Blackwater to you?
The water is all black.
Got you.
But it is just a unique place, very sort of remote, peaceful.
Right.
And that's because of the atmosphere I experienced as I was coming up.
Wow. How was it for you in those younger days? Were you a bad kid?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I, did the kid and childish things.
Got you.
But by being in the country, we did a lot of things, in the woods with nature and things of that nature. So we didn't do too many. I could share an experience that I had. One of my cousins was going to the corner store, and I was supposed to get the crackers, and he was supposed to get the peanut butter. And so when I got in the store, I got the crackers.
Yes, sir.
But I gave them to the lady because I was shaking in my knees. And this was around the age of 6 years old, and I promised that I would never
do
that experience again.
You were scared?
Scared to death.
So you're growing up in Blackwater. So now you're getting older. Where were you educated?
Princess Anne County, Virginia Beach, Tidewater Community College,
Wow.
St. Leo Institute, Evan Smith branch of Virginia Union University.
Wow. So you speak about education growing up. Was that during the time of segregation where it was separated?
It wasn't separated then when I read because this was in the latter part of the 60s, or the latter part of the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had integrated the latter part of the 60s. We were integrated.
Wow. So it wasn't that hard going to school during that time?
No.
Wow.
Plus I had transportation then also.
Got you. What kind of car you drive?
I had a 51 Chevrolet Coupe.
Wow.
Given to me by my cousin Henry, and he charged me $50 for it in a day. And the whole, I just paid him last year for it.
Oh, you're in the house in Blackwater. Who were your parents? How were they like growing up during that time?
My parents, Anderson and Ellie Foreman. My mother was a Lewis. And my father married her and brought her to Blackwater. And they were loving and supportive parents. My father drank, but he was very unique. He was disciplinary.
Yeah.
It wasn't abusive, but he disciplined us, and he taught us in terms of respect. And we live with that, you know, respecting not only those who are older, but those who are your age and younger, and respect yourself.
Wow. So although he had his own personal issues, it was still respect in the house.
Still respect, and he instilled in us a great deal.
Yeah. Because I asked that because, as I stated, all of us come from something, and we have a tendency to hide it as if we never experienced any type of trauma growing up. But like you said, your father had his own issues, but there were still problems in the house. So how were your grandparents during that time?
I had my mother, father, and mother rose up in Silas Lewis. My mother and father passed when I was 9 years old. And I can remember him as never holding down a job. But he always fed the family. He had some of the most beautiful garden that you could see. He would make his own tools. I had horses that, according to, he wouldn't sell them, and they was caught in the fire burned. And he went to his grave not forgiving the man because he felt the man who wanted to purchase those horses, the wood. We didn't know a whole lot about him. He had a brother in Richmond. He came down from Richmond, married my grandmother, Rosa Lewis. He was 20 years older than she was 20 and he was 40.
Wow.
And he died in his 80s. He was just a unique character, very independent. And he was just a man of honor, very light-skinned, good, hair and all. And that's what I knew of him. My grandmother was in our life all the way until we got grown. And I can remember being one of the oldest child, when my mother would have a baby, my grandmother would come and live with us and take care of her and all like that. And she was just a sweetheart, and she instilled in us about church.
Wow.
She had both of her legs amputated, but yet she just had just a loving spirit. And I did not know my grandmother on my father's side, but my grandfather, we lived next door, you see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
And he instilled a lot of the great traits and things of that nature in us. He talked about his life as an adult. He had to say, yes, sir, to an 8-year-old Caucasian, young man, and those, things such as that nature. And he was just an awesome, unique, person.
So let me ask you this. Is that where you get your good looks from? I heard you say he was light skinned with curly hair.
No, that was my mother's
father. Oh, that was your mother's father. Okay.
Father.
Did you get your good looks from that?
I don't know. I don't know. I would ask my wife, but she didn't meet him, so I don't know.
Gotcha. So you in school, were there any teachers that had an impact on your life, week from where you are today?
Yes, Mrs. Hazel Humphreys Bale. She is one of my early teachers. Thaddeus Clay Smith, he was handicapped basically, but he was awesome mathematic, deal with numbers, and he had a great impact on my life. Dick Price, who coached Norfolk State, he was at Union Kingsfield before he went to Norfolk State in terms of coaching, and he wasn't too much older than the young guys, and so he also treated us like men and talked to us. He didn't take anything, he talked to us back. And E. Ray Cox, one of the Bible teachers, E. Ray Cox and Dr. Simone had a great impact.
Wow. So there are people who had impacted you to be who you are today.
Yes.
Wow.
And I think Martin Luther King also was a blessing with some of the statements that he's made.
Yeah. Who are the people who most impacted you in your life, other than your teachers, that you can think of?
Again, I had great respect for my mom and dad.
Okay.
And my father would say, you should do it. But my mother would always encourage us. So if I would go to my father about, I got a good grade, I stopped that. He said, you should do it.
His responsibility.
You should do it. But my mother would always encourage, so that encouragement allowed us to feed from her, you know.
More.
Yes.
Got you. The encouragement. Wow. Say this name to you. Like I say it like this. When I say the name Lillian Gregory Foreman, what does that mean to you?
Lily.
Lily, I'm sorry. Lily.
Yes.
Yeah, Miss Lily.
That's my wife.
Yes.
Father, mother, 2 children.
Okay.
Inga and Nicole. She is a encourager, encourages me more than, and pushes me up and tells me to stop, you know, because there's sometimes I just think I don't want to, you know, not, and she's always encouraging me, pushing me, yes.
Wow.
To me, I can do it, you know. There's sometimes I feel that even teaching and, you know, preaching, she would encourage me. I can remember 2 years into the pastor that I was looking at ways to back away from the ministry, not preaching, but pastoring. And she was encouraging. And then about 15, 18 years later, she pointed a finger at my face and told me, shut up. So she's
and that pushed you to keep
pushing
going.
me, yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then we can talk some more about that when you get to that. Yes, she had been, you know, rock of the family.
Yeah.
Pusher, you know, of the family. I think that I have, maybe because of the girls, I'm a little lenient on the girls than she is. And she pushed the girls and talked to them like they was adults. Some of the things they should not do. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. So they ran to you then when trouble came.
Yes. He understood me better than Nicole.
Okay.
Because when I say, well, this is it, you know, we're not going to do this, or shut up, don't want to do it, she would do so. But Nicole, the younger, she had to justify herself, you know, all the time. And she was a leader in her own right. My wife and I would go off and would leave her at home, and I didn't know this not until we were older and they was teenagers, where if Nicole would forget her money, lunch money, she would give Nicole her money and she would not eat.
Wow.
And taking care and cleaning the house and doing, Nicole would just, her charge was just taking her room. Inga would take her the whole house and cover for her. And so she was that leader.
Big sister.
Sit role, yes.
Amazing. Shout out to you, Inga. So when I say the name Nicole Foreman Robinson, what does that mean?
I have a problem with that name.
Why is that?
The problem with Nicole
Why?
is because I'm a diehard Minnesota Viking. I was off on Monday, so she's 2 years old. She didn't have to worry about it. She was up with me, so I'm watching the game. And lo and behold, when she was able to talk and explain what she wanted for Christmas, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, was a Terry Bradshaw football. I had some issues with that. And from there, she won Dallas Cowboy. Do this young girl know what she was doing? I had a major issue because I was a diehard Minnesota Viking. And even though my wife was Redskin, everybody in the house had to be Minnesota Vikings. So I had some problems with her. We would be riding and she would see a lady jogging or driving a bus or something like that. Anything a man can do, a lady can do it better. Very independent. Very independent.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had a problem.
Had a problem. Had a problem, but we survived.
Yeah.
We survived. She was always pretty much contrary voice, speaking her piece.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So if she ain't like something, she gonna say it.
Gonna say it,
Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna mention this name to you, Kaya. That's your baby. Speak about her.
Wow. That's my buddy.
Your buddy, that's what it is, your buddy.
She taught me a lot about young people, and she educated me in terms of things, and I don't know whether it was just a coincidence or not, but I would observe her and see some of the things where she was able to do and responded to. Her father, Mark, and I went down when Nico was born. The child was a preemie. Nico was very sick, very sick. And Kyle was 4 days old when I got to, my wife had already gone. Kyle was 4 days old when I got to Bethesda Hospital in Boynton Beach. Mark and I, her dad, went into the room to incubate her. And the nurse came and told us, so we're going to teach her to suck the bottle on noon, you all come back. When we went back at 12 o'clock, they gave her the bottle and she never stopped. They didn't have to teach her anything. She was released from the hospital, 16 years old. They had sent Nico. Nico didn't see Kyle. They sent Nico from Bethesda Hospital to the medical center in Miami, which is about 70 miles north or 7 miles south of Boynton Beach. And so when she was released, Mark drove my wife and I, Kyle, 15 days old, went there. Nico was in a room similar to this, no television, both sexes. That's how sick she was. There was a nurse told the doctor, said she needs a television. Anyway, when we got there, she came out and she was talking to Kyle, 15 days old. Kyle didn't even move, didn't even respond.
That'd be hard.
Didn't even respond, not one bit. Well, you can understand that, you know, baby 15. But the next day, my wife and I, Neil and I drove down 16 days when we had Nico came out and started talking about the baby, that baby started smiling and whatever. And so I don't know whether that was a coincidence or what, but I drew from that. She was 3 years, or close to 3 years old, Christmas time. My wife and I bought her a doll in a plastic container. When we got there, she was born in February, so she was born in January. So she was 2 years old, 11 months. I tried to open that package, I couldn't open it. Her dad, Mom, played on the Virginia State football team. He couldn't open it. And put it in her hand, returned it, she's opened it.
She figured it out.
Yes. At 6, I think it was 6 or 8 months old, Lil called me from Florida, had her in that little pen where she couldn't get out. So then Lil called me and said that she had got out of it. She had always tried to figure it out. Her dad tried to put her in a car seat, I could do it. So I learned so much from her.
What did you learn, like? What did you learn from Cal?
I learned the independence. I learned the awesomeness of young people. You know, how brilliant they are, and we just let them they let them use their mind. They can teach us things. You know, learn how independent they can be, and sometimes we may cater. We need to watch them, observe them, but they can do things that, yes, if we let them loose, they can do things that really will blow our minds.
So it's great to listen to young people because they have creative.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who is Indy?
Let me back up a minute. Let me just say this about Kyle. We would go down and I'm down. You know, we have a favorite shirt or something that we like to wear, you know, all the time. I picked her up from school, 6 years old, and every time I went there, I had to take her to school, child care, early childhood development. I had to take her, I had to pick her up. Who want to carry you to work? You. And so this particular day, I had my shirt comfortable. Must have been the third day. She got in the car. Dad, don't you have another shirt you wear? She was embarrassed.
Right.
Because I heard the same shirt. Yes, a lot. But India is Inger's baby, her second child.
Okay.
Jonathan, the oldest child, was stillborn. India lived 2.5 months. Born in August and died in October. And when we, the night before she died, my wife and I was there with her, and as we were leaving, you know, we always talk to her. Now we're now 2 months old, and my wife would tell you today, she was saying goodbye, it's a way back, and you know, and so that's India.
Okay.
And she was, we had the funeral at the church from Great Bridge Boulevard, you know, the new church, Great Bridge Boulevard, and Lou Casket, and Kyle and T, same age, Donald's daughter. Both of them handled the little casket.
Really? Wow. That's deep. Wow. Pastor, what was or is your favorite pastime sport you played religiously? You like basketball?
Oh,
Could you play?
I just love the game. I love to play. I just have to play. I love the game.
Wow. You think you could have went to the NBA? Or you think?
Not from where
Oh,
because I didn't get a chance to play at an early age
Gotcha.
on the floor. You see what I'm saying? So that made a difference. You see, I had a good shooting game, but handling the ball and 6'2" in my day was considered tall, but I wasn't tall at all. You know, 6'2", so I played center most of the time because of my jumping ability.
Right.
And see, what my side there, you know, your guards is 6'6" and 6'7", you know, and so I would, you know.
But you like the ball?
Yes, love the ball.
I like to put a basketball, see you shoot one day.
Well,
Think you doing that?
I don't know. I still in my spirit. And I don't know whether you remember, they had a lot of the great athletes used to play out in Woodstock.
Yes, sir.
In the 80s, and I used to go out there and try to play a little bit with them
I
also.
would love to see that. You got pictures?
I think so.
Should
I used to love softball too.
Mhm.
I played a lot of softball, but basketball also.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Wow. You spoke about a car earlier that you used to drive back and forth to school. What do you think about fast cars? You like fast cars?
Yes, man.
You do?
Yeah, yes. The engine, the sound, the horsepower.
Yeah, I like that sound too.
Yeah, that's what we had.
That type of sound.
Yes. You know, we used to race a little bit in Blackwater Road.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow. Small roads.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So, moving on, when did you start your career with the city of Virginia Beach?
At about 18, 19 years of age.
Okay. Wow. So did you fill out an application or somebody, you know?
No, I was the city councilman. Earl Tebow lived next door to us.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a white guy. And so this season they wasn't hiring. And so I went to Earl Tebow and told him that I want to get a job, you know, with the city. He gave me a note and I signed it. So when I went to Cecil Lane, who was the manager, superintendent of the department, he said, "We're not hiring." I gave him a paper. And he saw that city council name on it. And so from there.
Because you had somebody's name.
Yes, with the city councilman. You know, city councilman owns everything.
Yeah.
People, he had it, you know, his name, he gave me the bill, so.
Wow.
It's a word.
And they gave you access to the city because of that name.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. How did you move up in the rank of employment all the way up to the superintendent of the entire department? How did that happen?
Only therefore I had to have good work ethics to keep people here. And so God just blessed, you know, and I saw the handiwork of God.
So you started something. You instituted the automotive trash collection.
Automated.
Talk about that. You mentioned that before to me. Explain that again. I thought that was powerful.
What happened, we went to Arizona to look at the automated system. There was a group of us, and as we was in our office, I was part of the supervision rank, and one person who ranked higher than me, the superintendent at that day, called the names that this person was going. And so the administrator and the department head said, "No, we're not so sure of that." And so they called me when I got home and asked me would I like to go. So I went, and it was a great experience. When we came back, I was assigned to train the operators on this equipment because we drive from the left side, you know, from the right side of the vehicle. And only the grace of God, you know, to be able to train others who I did not know that much about.
Wow.
You know, understood, you know, engines and equipment and things, but didn't know that much about. So only the grace of God. And so we got to the point where it was put in my lap, and we started the system in 1984, but to do the routing system for the automated, which was fuel, reserve, and also safety. It was put in my lap to do the routing system. And because I assumed because God blessed me with numbers, understood weight, yardage, and things of that nature. And so God allowed me to, matter of fact, I asked the administrator, because I needed two persons to assist me, Robert Burroughs and Ella Bishop Jerry Brown. They did some of my research for me. Then Juanita came in later and worked with them doing some of my research for me. They would bring me the information in and I would look at it and I would ask them, are you sure? Are you sure? And that sparked that they had to go back out and do some more research. And when they came back, they realized that it was off. So that's just by the grace of God. Right. And I say that because this was 1994 when the interest started implementing that program. Mrs. Foreman had a major stroke in 1994, 1st of September. We served at the church, revival. We went home that Monday morning. She was looking in the paper trying to find the job number, and that was unusual. And so she went to the hospital. It affected her vision. A lot of times people, and I share with people that you're on her right side, she don't see her right field is gone. Sometimes people say that she won't speak, but that's by not knowing the still the right side. If you're in like my hand,
right here,
she can't see that.
Wow.
It affected her, she had a blood clot to the brain. It affected her organs, her heart, her lungs, the respiratory system, her left side. But she done it for sure. God truly blessed. And I had to deal with that and implementing that system.
So that was
when she came to and left from the hospital, I would go to work, leave from work, come home, fix her meal, get her out of the bed, come back to work, 12 o'clock, come back home, get her meal. I did that consistently with even some of the supervisors that I worked with. They looked, it was amazing. You know what I'm saying? But
you kept going.
Just kept going. Nobody, but only the grace of God.
Absolutely.
Only the grace of God.
So it was a big challenge for you.
Yes.
Dealing with that and dealing with home.
Yes, yes.
That's a lot.
Yes, but, and I think you had Sister Ruby Johnson and Josh and Vincent Francis Paulson, and then they are some of the older members, because Francis and Jocelyn helped me out this Sunday morning that, she was in there, and they knew I wanted to come to work, so I was in Sunday school this Sunday morning, never missed the Bible study verse 7 because of that and all. And so, only the grace of God.
It was the passion you had.
Yes, only the grace of God, yeah. Wow. In 2018, when she got sick again, the doctor, we almost lost her according to the doctor. That slowed me down a bit with my age and ministry. That slowed it down quite a bit. But only the grace of God, the job. And I didn't even talk too much about the ministry there, but the job and the ministry, only the grace of God. Only the grace of God.
So working in pastoring, that's
and family.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Only the grace of God.
Sometimes people expect you to preach a good word, not knowing what you've been through.
Right.
A week prior to you coming to that pulpit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only the grace of God.
I think people
brings tears to the name.
I think that's something people should understand, because sometimes people look at pastoring as like, wow, he's got angels sitting at the side of his bed, downloading sermons, not knowing you have to study, you have to tend to your family, you have to work, and then you have to really think about the word to feed the people. That's a lot, it's a lot. So we honor you. I honor you for that.
I don't know how, only
by the grace of God.
Only the grace of God.
Wow. So when did you retire?
2003, in December 2003 from the city.
So you started pastoring what year?
1985.
Wow. And you were pastoring and working.
Yes.
All the way up to 03.
Yes.
Wow.
And that is a challenge when we start building the church on Great Ridge Boulevard.
So, explain why did you retire?
Because of the workload.
Absolutely.
It was just
It
yeah.
became a lot.
Yeah. And there are certain things that we did not know when we built the church on Great Ridge Boulevard, other pastors sharing that I should have taken home. You see, sabbatical leave or sometimes church have difficulty with it, but it's
Necessary.
It's necessary.
Absolutely.
It's necessary.
It is, absolutely. So I know we jumped into you pastoring. So let's go back to your call to preach. Because there are a lot of people aspiring to be preachers today, you know. So if you could remember, what was that, I guess, that unction that you knew you were called to preach?
That's a long story.
Okay.
It's not a one-time.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Like Jonah?
Pastor J.B. Williams, Jesus pastor New Weeping Mary Baptist Church, he shared with me one day, he said that he believed that you were called to pastor, to preach from birth. That's what he said. And he shared the story of Jeremiah. I don't know, but that has a lot of weight.
Right.
Miss Lucy, dear heart, my great aunt, she married my mother's uncle, which was my great uncle, and she lived third door from us. You had to get to her house before she passed on. And she would send the news to my father and mother that we were playing throwing dirt, rocks, and like that, and get home. Being approached by our parents, especially the father. And no, Dad, I didn't do it. Oh, Miss Lucy said a lot on that at the end of that story. So I had some issues with Miss Lucy. But in the midst of that,
right.
She told me at 8 years old that I was going to be a preacher. That affected my life some because I didn't learn to dance after that. But then after I got into the teenagers, 18, 19, 20, I sort of went out, and started doing my,
Okay.
Yeah, but I
Gotcha.
never forgot that. And when I was 19 and 78, during the time when my grandmother was funeral, Pastor Horace Moore, Gable Chapel, he preached an awesome sermon. And from there I started having visions and dreams about me being in the pulpit, and most of all about me sitting in the middle with 12, 13 people, around teaching and preaching. And so that, but I did not respond. Some small issues would happen, and I would say, yes, God. And as soon as this small issue was corrected or taken care of, I could go back. And I could just tell that the small things just, kept happening from there.
Just say yes.
I had to say yes. I had to say yes. But, and prior to that, the Lord just had me, I would read sometime 12, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Just read.
Just read.
Had a hunger for
Had a hunger for it.
Wow. So during that time, how did you know that you were called to the ministry as a pastor? How did you know that?
They had the meeting with evening, and I think it was somewhere around the 27th or 28th of August.
Wow.
We got the call.
That you were the pastor?
Yeah.
What was that feeling at the time? How did you feel? Were you excited?
Excited, not really knowing what you're getting into. But excited. But excited.
Wow. That had to be. You start calling people, or what did you do?
But yeah, my pastor, O.L. Foreman, was pastoring New York Road.
Right.
At that time.
Yeah.
And I went through an awesome experience at New York Road. I trust that no church ever go through that. We were 40 months without a pastor when Pastor Horace Moore passed from North Carolina, and before he got Reverend Cromwell. It's because of the, we had 100 members, we had 200 members, we had different ideas, so the pulpit committee, through voting and so it was just, by not having a leader to help assist in that area, it was really challenging because I wanted to be able to look at you know, the person who was going to preach next, who was not a pastor, is at least bouncing things off of me as I was going through in those times. And I was challenged as I was going through because I was in the Word and also working in family man. And then some, the people with different denominations would share with me, you're not in the right place, come on here, you're in the right place. But God never showed it in the Bible that I was in the wrong place. And so I stayed there. He never, and other people, other denominations, you know, share that, you know, he needs to be over here. He's a good boy, a good preacher, but he needs to be over here in this denomination. But God never moved me to leave New Oak Grove because what I saw in the Word, I didn't see what people was, you know, calling me to. And I assumed by being in my 30s, when I went back, rededicated myself to the Lord, I probably wasn't mature enough as not to move back every, you know, back and call. I probably wasn't mature.
Wow.
But God allowed me to stay in His Word and through the Holy Spirit.
Until you knew it was time.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Awesome Spirit.
Wow. Wow. So when you get to New Galilee, you become the pastor. How big or how many members were there at the time when you started?
The history say it was 50, but my wife and I count between that 40 to 50, you know, regularly. But they started coming back. And what happened was, again, when I think in the pastor league, people started about, you know, staying on to other places, but some of the same members people who were members started coming back.
Wow, when you became pastor?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Good preaching.
No, I wouldn't say that, not at all. I think that I would say, if I had a trait, I think it would be love.
Love, yeah.
Yeah, I think that if I would say like love, and God allowed me through my training to rise above some criticism and things of that nature. So,
wow. You pushed through.
Yeah.
37 years.
Nobody but God.
Wow. Wow. Here's a question I have. What happened when Nicole wanted a pair of Nike shoes?
What's that, man?
When Nicole wanted your daughter
Yeah,
a
okay.
pair of Nikes.
A pair of Nikes?
Shoes.
You know what they,
You wouldn't buy them.
you know what they call?
Why you wouldn't buy them?
Because it costs too much. Even though her mom didn't have the money. Costs too much.
She get mad at you?
Crying. She been about 80 years old.
Wanted some.
What's the one that she could do for the guy to go home? They go back home.
Oh man. So you wouldn't buy
You
the
had to
shoes?
bring that up.
So you wouldn't buy the shoes?
No.
Do she hold it over your head today?
Huh?
She holds that over your head today?
No.
Oh, she don't.
Her mama came home, she went.
You wouldn't buy the shoes. Why did your granddaughter Kyle tell you to wear the same shirt again?
Oh, no, she was telling me not to.
Not to wear the same
We answered that earlier.
Okay.
Because I
Oh,
wore the same
you wouldn't
shirt.
say shirt.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. But you wouldn't buy the shoes though, the Nike shoes.
No, too.
Yeah, they even higher today.
And the store that we went to, and this was in the 70s, and them shoes cost almost right at $100.
Wow.
We could have went
They
someplace
high.
else and could have got, you know,
Yeah.
shoes, yeah.
Wow. Nicole couldn't drive a stick shift, right? She couldn't drive a stick shift, but you made her drive all the way home. What is that all about?
Ingram, without me knowing, taught Nicole how to drive. And Nicole goes to the dealer, and her mom had picked out the car because she came to me on Sunday. She wanted a car. I know what kind of car you want. She wanted a truck.
Who?
A truck. And she was in college. And I saw her trembling. And so she and her mom went out and picked out the car, but she wanted a truck. And so this little orange Splash sporting truck. And so we talked to Mom and we're going to buy that for her. It's great shit. She picked it out. And so who was going to drive it? she picked it out, and so then she had to drive it.
Mm.
She could drive, and she just had to learn this year.
Wow.
And she drove it from here to the campus, not from the campus here. From
Right.
Virginia Beach to Virginia State. Yeah.
Wow.
I felt confident.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah.
You weren't scared. Back then you ain't had to wear a seatbelt, did you? It wasn't.
I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
I know somewhere around that 80, 70, 80, it was, became
Gotcha.
Bishop mandatory.
Speak about cooking. Everybody feel like they can cook. Do you feel like you can make the best breakfast? You think?
Probably, I brag on that a little bit.
So you can make the best.
Probably.
Okay.
And
Why you think
not
that?
because I said so. My wife family, when they one day, Ms. Foreman, they had the breakfast laid out, and her nieces and nephews came from the Maryland area, and our family, fell in that food, and they just thought, oh boy, this Uncle Sonny cooked, Uncle Sonny cooked. But we had cooked it that day. But prior to that, they know that, I would cook, I would prepare grits and cheese and things of that nature.
Right.
And my wife said that they wouldn't eat, grits or rice and things like that, but when they come, they will eat it.
What's your breakfast?
Yeah, the best scrambled eggs. My brother-in-law would say they learned the scrambled eggs from them. Yeah.
I would love to see you in the kitchen cooking.
Smithfield ham, bacon. Sometimes I think, and our chairman called, he can almost smell the bacon through the phone. But I used to do pretty good.
Okay.
I still do it.
You still doing
Yeah,
that?
I still do it. Yeah, Nico, Kaya, when she get here, she looked for the breakfast. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So moving on, the church on Great Bridge Boulevard. How did you come to build the new church on Great Bridge Boulevard? What was that all about?
Service, and I don't know who called her or how she came, but do you remember Mrs. Deaconess Gertie Wilson?
Remember that name?
That's Reverend Carolyn Brown, Orange, that's Elaine Lewis' mother. Sister Gertie Wilson got in the middle of the floor between the pulpit and the aisle and said, I woke up this morning that I had no doubt through the song, and the church went up, and the camera people left.
Wow.
And that song and mood just inspired us even more. And there were some, complaints. There were some people who were saying that there are people in New Galilee who have the money, but they just won't give it, things of that nature. But they didn't know. You see, I even had preachers would talk about what they couldn't do and what they could do. But I just sat there. I tried to share this with Inga, Nicole, and Kyle. You don't have to respond to every negative.
Like that.
Rise above it.
Like that.
They didn't know that because of the city, the inspections and the insurance. You see, they had to come back and do reinforced rebar, in the building, and it took us a year. But it wasn't because we didn't have the money, it was because the city wasn't satisfied with. They had to go and do a check in our building. Only the roof fell over the sanctuary, you see, but they had to do a check the rebars in the entire project. We had the daycare and the kitchen and all that. That wasn't damaged, but they had to do all of that. So it took us that long, to do that. So and that's what it takes patience.
Yes.
And pulling on God.
Yeah. So that's not easy to build.
Not at all.
Wow. You had to be strong through that whole process.
Yeah.
Try your best.
Yes.
Wow.
All you can, all you know how to still rise above.
Yeah.
But again, the board that we had, which was awesome, the deacons and deaconess and trustees, they was just awesome. As we came to our meetings, it wasn't no criticism. It's basically saying where do we go from here and how do we move. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so
God
put the people in the place, the right place at the right time.
I like that song this morning when I
I
rose
woke
up.
up, I had no doubt.
Wow. And that moved
That
everybody.
moved the entire church, you know, the members here.
Like it strengthened their faith.
Yes, just made a matter of fact. We really leaning on the pillars and shoulders of our older people. Let me just back up a moment. When we decided to be them, we put it on the floor. And those older mothers who did not have jobs the way we had jobs, they rose to the occasion. We can do it. Mother Furber, Mother Griffin, Mother Hannah, Mother Deacon Vincent's mother, Ruben's mother, Mother Morris, Sister Campbell, Sister Rita, you know, you just go, those mothers rose to the occasion and said, we can do it. Yes, we can. And I looked at that. It had to be God moving them. It's because they was housewives.
Right.
They did piecework. Sister Griffin worked with civil service, but most of them did not. They went in. And that's why I hear Reverend George Wilson say time and time again, say we look at the big bucks, but we forget about the dollars. And those persons gave from their heart.
Add up.
Yes. It had to be God just multiplied. It had to be God. I just wanted to put that was an awesome moment to see them. And the same group when the building failed. Mother Sanders, same group, rallied that morning with that song. Mother Gertrude, Deaconess Gertrude Wilson. When I woke up this morning, I had no doubt.
Wow. Amazing. So those dollars add up.
Sure.
Add up.
I think they add up because the people gave from their heart.
No.
And when I say dollars, you know, it's more than that. Sometimes what they gave from their heart. Yes. And they had family members and children too, who wasn't part of the church and then, but they was giving too, through their commitment. It was just
It's an awesome moment.
Yeah.
You think about it often? That moment?
Yes. After that moment, and when they rose to that occasion and said, we, you know, want to be or we can be that will be parallel with any moment in terms of structural moving and building. It's an awesome moment.
Wow. I know it's by the grace of God. God used you to do some amazing things. And I do look at you as a Nehemiah because you built a church. But then came a time where it was time to move again from there to where we are now. That was amazing. So talk about that. What was that move about?
That's, again, a long story.
Okay.
I got called one evening, Deacon Clinton called Ruth Hallhausen. I don't know her, he was deacon before because Ruth was a member of the church a long time and he supported her. And then he was really one of it, you know. He called me and told me that the city of Chesapeake was unveiling a plan for the project, the connection, Oak Grove, North Carolina connection. So we went, I think it was August 22nd. I don't know exactly what year, August 20, we went to the city and they had unveiled the plans for the structure and that plan, and this was 2004, and it was taking our property from there, so that's how it started. But prior to that, I had, he was George Wilson, then Deacon George Wilson. I had him sort of like a troubleshooter, go out and research for land. It's because our early childhood center was thriving. It was 93 capacity and for the daycare. And Carolyn Pope we had 90 kids, and the kids who was coming to our school, they did well, you know, in school and all, you know, they had awesome graduations. So I thought that God put it in my spirit to research land to build a school, And when Clinton called and some of us, I think Deacon Cross and I went, that was taking our parking lot in 2004, that's when it revealed to me about the land was for, you know, the church, because they was going to take our parking, and we could not build the 500 seating at the 1013 location because we had to have one parking space for 4 members. You see, and we only had 97 parking spaces. So we got 27, 29 parking spaces from the school board next time. We wrote them a letter, and they said we could use their parking after hours. So on Sundays, and when they were, we could use, so we got a letter from them, a written document, saying that we could park in, on their parking. So we couldn't lose any parking.
Right.
And so that's when I saw that we had to move. But it was a long drawn out, time because, we went through a financial crash in 2008, and they were supposed to move quickly, but they didn't. Because then after then, we was going past a week, and the city representatives and state representatives come and told us that we got 120 days. I was in tears. I was upset. 120 days. You got 90 days to make up your mind what you're going to do, and the other 30 days to move. So, but it was 120 days. So many days, I don't know, it was 60 days to make up your mind. And they said, we're going to give you, if you stay here, we're going to give you $1,100,000. If you stay here at the church. If you move, we're going to give you $2,200,000. That if you move, right. That was there. And God again had another Moses or Martin Luther King in Iran, David Arson, who worked on engineer, who understood eminent domain, who worked with various lawyers and things on both sides. Wow. Representing their owners and also working for the government. He introduced us to Waldorf. When we went to see him downtown, there was a group of us. He treated David as if he was an attorney, everything about, and he vowed to take the case. And not only that, when he took the case, he charged, but then he did the numbers that when we settled, then we came out better by the numbers. And I understood numbers and all stuff. Right. And he worked, and he told us in the meeting, he told us that there was a retired judge, George Harris from Richmond. He goes around negotiating, on the behalf of the eminent domain, people and whatnot. And he said he charged $10,000. 2 or 3 days later, the city of Chesapeake called me and said, Pastor Foreman, we got a judge out of Richmond, said that he would sit down and he would hear our case, and he will, do what's best. If you all decided it, we will pay, the city will pay. Well, Waldorf had already introduced me to him, because if the city said we had someone, I might have said no. But I'm saying, look at God, preparing us as we go. And we went there, we negotiated down, and Waldorf, the attorney, felt good about it, and he gave the numbers, and the city of Chesapeake with me of $50,000, $1,750,000 for the negotiation out of 100 out of 2,022. $3,750,000. City of Chesapeake relieved on the 50,000. And when Waldorf called me that evening, I told him, I said, I'm tired of this city, I'm tired of it. I'm going to call the media ignorant. And you don't know, Reverend Foreman, I would give you $45,000 of my salary that you all owed me. And that was it.
That's a great bridge.
We had decided. Again, God had the people in place to work. We had decided on 2 churches where we was going to worship. In the River High School or Great Bridge. Intermediate, which in the days before, and I know you're not talking about here, but then I know we have to, but Mrs. Foreman and I usually tell the people who we are in the area, I use the interstate, going to the church. When we are relaxing courting, we use Kinsfield Road or Military Highway. And this particular day became a military highway. And God solaced me and had me to check on this building. It was vacant. I was like an obedient child, did not believe it, did not want to, but because God allowed me to go silent, and He spoke to my spirit and said, check on it. And I said, in reply, in my mind, it costs us too much and it's too big. But because that had to do, I had to check. So again, I called Reverend John Wilson, God the King of Wilson, and he came and looked at it. I had a couple of people in. Miss Johnson was having a meeting, and he asked her to come out, and look at it. That particularly came and look at it, and that was
Rest is history.
rest is history.
Wow.
But you just think in terms of that movement
Process.
coming here and the process, and then what we had to go through with the city,
That's a lot.
the attorney. We used the attorney to take care 1013 when we built, and we was going to that firm, and that firm was going to charge us and $300 per hour along with $15,000. And I was intense.
Wow.
And Pastor Tyler of South here called me. We called each other Big Brother. Evidently, it must have been that Thursday because we had a meeting. And Big Brother, how you doing? Do you have an attorney? I said, we're going to sign, with an attorney today. He said, well, I got a Chevelle partner. She's a member of mine. She had her own firm. She worked with the city. She knows ins and outs. I said, Big Brother, you got to call her because if I call her, you know how they do on the way call.
Right.
When I call, talk with her, and I said, we have a meeting today at 6:30. She said, well, you ought to come. She came. We had Deacon Parson. He was out of town. He was a part of that committee. He was out of town on a task for the Army Corps of Engineer. When she ran her resume down, Deacon Parsons knew her, accepted her. She charged us $150 an hour. And I think it was Deacon Wilson being charged. Asked us, well, what about the fee down payment? She said, all you have to do is pay for the posting and the information getting out. So that should cost no more than $1,500. $15,000 to $1,500. $300 plus had to pay the staff to $150. Nobody.
Wow. In this building right here, were there any big challenges dealing with this one?
Could I go back just a
Yes,
moment?
sir.
This building, Wayne Jones, Wayne Jones, Minister Wayne Jones, air, land and sea equipment, one of our ministers, he was going to Africa. He was in that voting system, and he was invited to Scott Bridges, Congressman Scott Bridges' house. He said, well, I can't go, but my pastor might want to go. I didn't want to go because I wanted to see Scott Bridges in his office. I didn't want to go to his house. Again, my wife put my finger.
See you, buddy.
You need him, he don't need you. Lord help her. And so, prior to that, we put in word of mouth to God the King, real estate. And he said, Scott, we will take no more than $4 million to $400,000. That's what it was listed for. So when we came in the building to look at it, I don't want to talk because I don't want to talk to the person who I'm not going to negotiate with. You know what I'm saying? So through the building and all. And I had the opportunity to go to his house. And he introduced himself. Said a few words about politics, and he walked out. Kyle was in a play the Friday evening here, and we wanted to get back, to support Kyle, the granddaughter. And we met him in the yard, and we spent about 12, 14 minutes there. And I told him, I said, Congressman, I recognize that the number that we gave you would negotiate. He knew nothing about it. Nothing about the number. And so we hooked up. His son called me. I was coming from a funeral a week later and said, Scott Bridges, back to your ministry. We want to at least get their real estate agents and their son-in-law who takes care of the business. We talked. We got him down to $4,400,000 to $3,750,000. That's what they got this building down to. And I told him, I said, you got to do better than that because you in the car business. We can put your name somewhere in there. He said, Reverend Foreman, I forgot to tell you, Scott Richard told me to tell you he going to donate $100,000 to your ministry. I said, cut the meeting off. Should be all right, because cut the meeting off, because that was the $100,000 that I was looking for, But I just wanted to put that.
Amazing.
It was just amazing. In every step.
Wow, you could see God as you look back.
Well, I could see that as I was
going forward too. Could you see this? Could you,
After came in, because the reporters, news reporters and all, said they see a car dealer. I said, I see a church. I knew nothing about architect. I said it here, God allowed me, Mr. Odom, to design this building. Set in here. They had the car lifts and everything in here when we came.
You saw a sanctuary.
Yeah. Even some of the people there said they did not see it, but I saw it.
That's amazing. Wow.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Is there any history you remember that stands out to you? Like something you can remember that?
In terms
of a picture you took a picture.
Here?
Yeah, at the old church.
Yes, we have pictures here.
Yeah, you were standing at the old church, right?
This church.
Talk about that.
I think that was in the same room that we had different people, and we had people even out of Richmond coming and want to do sort of like a similar interview, and just want to talk about, where we come from and what we're going to do and how we're going to get there. And this is it. Even our administrative room, all of that has changed. You saying to the Ferber room, the Monday room. We see the handler on Mr. London 121 years ago, donating the land on Great Bridge Boulevard for a church. Look at how God is able to look down through time. And I see that history as Mr. London gave the church to the few members who was having worship in their home for a church. So, saw that then. That was an awesome piece. And, I like members also. And I'm the 5th pastor in Galilee, and 5 is grace. So I knew God had his hands of grace upon me. You can't change, I don't care whatever. I mean, I've gone places that, like that. Even preachers and pastors are amazing. You said what we have. We go places and they ask us where we from and where we pastor. And a lot of times Pastor Johnson is with me, or even some of the other guys. We only inflamed with about 40 some pastors.
Right.
And they didn't know all of them, but they understood this. And I would, just say I pastored, New Galilee and Reverend Johnson. Y'all, let me tell y'all something. He doing it lightly, and then Reverend Johnson would talk about, back in ministry, And all this would talk about, Bishop Reddick and all talk about the ministry. Pastor Davis, we'd all talk about the ministry. Pastor Mitchell and Pastor Chapman. They was a true blessing to me. They just supported, they didn't move, Pastor Chapman vowed when we were in the church, said every time I preach, I'm going to give New Galilee my tithe for wherever I get out, and things of that nature. So we had great blessings from preachers, from pastors. Also.
Wow. What awaits New Galilee in the future?
I hope that New Galilee will move forward because, we have younger people coming in, younger ideas. And one of the things I hope and pray that whatever New Galilee does, they will not forget the bridge that brought New Galilee this far, and that's dealing with seniors. Seniors is part of who I am. I can remember my grandfather got hit with a car in the 50s. And they would put those big casts on him then, and when he came from the hospital, I was pretty much his nurse or doctor, bathing him and wrapping him, and doing that. And I was a young kid, so I've always had a heart for young people. I'm sorry for older people, my grandmother, my aunts, and things like that. nature. And I think because of that, there was a shower of blessing upon me by me understanding and respecting, them. God just bless me. So I hope the church future will thrive. And number one, as we remember our seniors, we also have to tie into the young people. And the young people is not thinking the way we are thinking today. So you need someone who actually will listen to. That's one of the things that on the job, when I was moving up, one of the things I always did, listen. I would tell them, I said, well, now, when you come to me, after you're going through 4 steps to get to me if you have a problem, you pretty much fall. And they understood that. So when they came past the supervisor, their leader, the general supervisor, the assistant, get to me, and they understood that. But they would say to my chair, and Reverend Chuck, I would treat them as if I was the one who committed the crime or who did the thing wrong. Why? Because God looked at me, an imperfect being, and saved me, and keeps me in my imperfect life today. So I looked at others, and I saw me. I was sitting in their seat, and they were able to change their behavior and everything because it could have been me. Don't look down on a person when they are down. We don't know what they're going through with their family or children and things of that nature. We don't know how the other leader goes. Others.
Wow. What do you see yourself in the next 2 years, 3 years?
Listening to God. Listening to God.
You see yourself in the Bahamas on the beach?
I have not done all that I could. I don't know who can say that I've done everything I have not done, but I have served, and I cannot take back or relive anything. So that would be between God and New Galilee, my age.
You look good though.
77 years old. I've served 38 years. I want the church to move forward. One of the things that it does plague me, I've seen churches, I've served churches, I've ordained pastors for churches, assisted in ordination, and for death, you can't plan that. I mean, you're not responsible for that, but you can plan. And I would like to see New Galilee to move forward without, you see what I'm saying, me leaving the ministry, but that's up to God and New Galilee. But I think that my wife and I, we have done, I don't know how much more, there's a lot in this ministry that can be done.
Wow.
It is always challenging. Sometimes people have, I had one of the supervisors, I said, well, how can you pastor a church? How can you be saved and supervise? I said, that's the best. I fasted and prayed regularly. Matter of fact, when I was working and pastoring, I fast more then than I do now. Fast and pray. And I listened to people. I respected people. I encouraged them. And I heard that in the pastor too. How can you see what I'm saying? Do you not know we have the same people who I work with at the city of Virginia Beach who belongs to a church on New Galilee? I pastor the same people who work with the city system. I pastor the same people who work in the school system. I pastor the same people who have businesses. I pastor the same people. You see what I'm saying? So is there a difference in your workforce and the people who you serve in the church? If you show the respect, they will. Say this last part here, it's up here. We were off on Mondays, and so Tuesday would be the Monday for the men, and we had a locker room almost as big as this, and my office is adjacent to it, but there was couple of doors that they go to get. So sometimes I would go over, and we had this guy named Meriwether. They would be in their room, you know, arguing and having a good time about the game, reliving the game, and they would be cursing. So, and Meriwether looked at me and went, "Reverend, you got to let us know that you come to me. We want to respect you, but we're not proving that." You know, and so that's the kind of respect that I had. Yeah. I had one or two guys who would leave work on Friday and come back on Tuesday. Look like they had the same uniform. When I walk out under that canopy, I would shake that person's hand, I would shake their brother.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that that person started coming to me with a big smile already there.
Yeah.
And so when we look at people, we got to look at it and say, what hindered me from being, what hindered me from being a drug addict or nobody? What stopped me? Nobody but God and the people I had around me.
Wow. Man. As we close, as I started out, we had Golden Corral. And I appreciate you eating lunch with me, sitting down and talking to me. As we close out, what do you pretty much said it, but what do you want people to know about you now, today, in your own words? That makes sense.
Look at my life. You see what God has done. That's, look at the accomplishments is, can we put them on Jesus' road? So that put it on, because it's nobody but him.
Is there anything you want to share before we close out?
I think I've talked.
You talk.
Love is always something, we put out up high. And thank you for.
Thank you.
I had some little lyric about, telling the story. But Reverend Wilson had been wanting to get some, because there's much more, remember about it. But I just wish that the church will move forward with pride and would understand that people are people, and Christ died for the least of us. And so I wish that the next leader would at least, how best we can cooperate. Yeah, there are some leaders who are catering to the younger people, but I think that we ought to select a leader who will be able to value, appreciate, and look at where we've come from the seniors to the least or to the youngest to the
balance.
That's that, yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
God bless.